We're live on A Case for Books. I am 99% sure that that is what's happening. No, now it's saying internal server error, go live again.
Should I go to your channel and...
Yeah, oh, okay, it's now refreshing. It said it was doing it and then it said error and now it's refreshing. So honestly, I hadn't even heard of Zoom 2 months ago.
No, not many of us had, and now it's taken over our lives.
Okay, great. Okay, right. A Case for Books. We're live, right? Definitely live. Great. Hello, everyone. Thanks for bearing with us. Only 3 minutes late. I was having slight tech difficulties, but I think 3 minutes is okay. So, obviously, this is the sort of thing that Eric and I usually do IRL in our homes. But we are attempting to do it still. So Eric is in his home, I'm in my home, and we are going to have a quick chat before the shortlist announcement about what we've been reading and what we think. And then we're going to attempt to share the live announcement with you here as well. And we'll have we won't probably talk too much over it, but you'll be able to see our reactions. And then after the announcement's finished, we will have a chat. That's the plan. Obviously, you can't test this because it's live. So that's the plan. And we'll definitely chat about the prize. And fingers crossed, we can make the announcement bit work as well. So anyway, hi.
Hi.
You have also very diligently got all the books, which I
tried to pile them all up here. Yeah.
I had such lofty intentions of reading all of them because I did last year, and then quite like it was just starting to all kick off, and I must admit I have not been very good at reading with any sort of plan or discipline on lockdown. I have been reading entirely what I feel like, and mainly children's books, so I haven't read much of the long list. How have you got on?
Well, though, you've read this big one though, haven't you?
So. Yes, no, actually I have, yes. So.
I mean, that's the sort of biggest, most challenging one. Yeah, I have to admit, this is like the first year probably that I've not read, well, probably the first time in maybe 3 or 4 years that I haven't read the entire long list before the shortlist announcement. And yeah, and I mean, and that's for like a number of reasons, because well, there's been some other books that I just let myself get distracted by, even though I was quite eager to read a lot of these. And yeah, and like a lot of people, just in the past few weeks, my reading has just really slowed down for a number of reasons, just from general anxiety about everything that's happening and just not being able to concentrate as much as I'd like to. But also, yeah, just in practical terms, having less time to read than I do normally, being stuck here in just the situation I am in. So I'm like with my partner all the time, and so yeah, it doesn't give me as much free reading time as I normally have. So yeah, so I think I've only read, I was trying to count up, I think I've only read 5.5 of the books. I'm in the midst of reading Hamnet right now. And but just today, I just finished 1,000 Ships. And so so we need to have a talk about this, I guess, because obviously you've been a big champion of Natalie Haynes since last year before. And no, I really enjoyed it. It's a great book, really excellent. And I think part of the it's just sort of the circumstances that I've read a few different Greek mythological retellings in the past few years, a lot with that have parallel crossover events with this novel. So I felt for part of it, it was just sort of like retreading ground. Obviously, she gives a different characterization and a different like slant on the events, and yeah, and she covers a lot more than a lot of the other books and retellings do, which I think is to its like credit and to its sort of detriment in a way, because it did partly feel sort of like a greatest hits of like all these different mythologies, just told from the woman's point of view. Though it does like really interesting go into some different parts which I feel like haven't been explored as much and talked about as much. So so yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed it overall. But I feel like if I hadn't, read all those other books, I would have just like, yeah, been much more jubilant about this.
Which I think that we talked about this last year, that because for
Mm,
me, I've read I think probably most of the same books, but this was the first one I read. And so for better or worse, you do end up, all of the ones you read through the lens of the first one that you came to. So I read 1,000 Ships before I read Circe, and before I read Silence of the Girls. And so at the time, it felt really fresh for me. And then I think I kind of bedded into that attitude when I read The Silence of the Girls and didn't really get on with it. And I must admit, I did like that it was, I liked the way it jumped between the voices. I liked the way it used the collective voice. I also just really liked the way that she uses the framing of the muses.
yes, yeah.
And I think that I like that it's hard, it's not like experimental fiction or anything, but it has got like a little bit of a meta edge with the muses kind of saying, I like the reframing of it and the anger of the muses. And I think that just that gentle kind of meta edge is very much my taste, rather than the more straightforward narrative of Silence of the Girls.
Yeah, and I think like plot wise, that really adds a lot to the book too, because as you see the deities sort of meddling in the mortals' lives, and how it sort of builds this plot of like why all these events are unfolding, which yeah, you don't find out till like halfway, or so like I did find myself in sort of suspense, even though I knew why everything was happening. But the way she had set up of how, and I also found it like quite funny parts of it. I mean, obviously there's some very serious parts, but particularly with the deities sort of like bickering with each other, all that like pettiness, I found quite funny. And the goddesses sort of like fighting over this silly like gold apple, and like yeah. So I really enjoyed that bit, and and I thought she sort of balanced all those things really well in the novel. And so so yeah, I like hugely enjoyed it. But yeah, and obviously it's not the author's fault that I've had this particular reading experience of it. But yeah, so that's sort of my thoughts on that.
Right, I'm aware that it's 9 minutes past, and so I think we should try and squeeze in, even though we won't have a lot of time to kind of dissect our reasoning, I do think we should squeeze in some sort of quick prediction slash wish list. I haven't read enough of them to offer a prediction. So shall I just say mine, and then I'm aware we don't have a lot of time.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
These are, okay, so my essentially wish list, because I haven't read enough to really try and guess, are Girl, Woman, Other, which I'm in the middle of now and I'm enjoying as much as I thought I would and everyone else has. 1,000 Ships, which we've talked about how much I love. The Mirror and the Light, which I've read and adored and I'm just big Mantel fangirl. Hamnet, which I haven't read yet. It's my treat for after I've finished my edit of my book, but I've read everything else that she has written, and I know it's quite different, but I feel confident that I will like it, considering I like her other work and how much other people like it. And then How We Disappeared, just because I feel like One World has form, like it's published by One World, and they just have so many prize winners. They just like have an eye for it, and people seem to have liked it a lot. So that's number 5. And then my 6th one, I think the one I most want to read is The Dutch House, but I feel like I haven't heard a lot of chat about it. So I would say either The Dutch House or Red at the Bone would be my kind of, I would most like to read The Dutch House, but I maybe think Red at the Bone, people seem to have been responding well to that. So that's the kind of top level of my kind of wish list, with a little bit predicting for the ones I haven't read. Basically, just I feel like it's always fairly safe to put money on One World in a prize category.
It seems to be, yeah. But yeah, I think and and we have some crossovers. So I sort of conveniently put at the top here my 6 that I would probably put on with Girl, Woman, Other. Which, I just absolutely, it's such a great, brilliant novel. Weather too, even though it's like fairly slight, in sort of page number, it also like is a book that's really speaking to now, I think. And I don't know how much that'll factor into the judges' decisions, but yeah, it seems it could do Red at the Bone, just because I haven't read this yet, but it's one I really want to. So
Yeah.
I'm sort of secretly hoping, that'll be 2 or 3 on the list. I mean, I'm sure there will be, that I haven't read, so
Yeah.
that'll like push me to read them. And yeah, lots of people have been saying it's great. The Dutch House, because I absolutely adored it when I read it when it was published towards the end of last year, and yeah, just such a beautiful, beautiful novel and story, and also Hilary Mantel, because I mean it's pretty. Although I do have to admit too, I started reading this and read about 50 pages of it and then put it aside just because I'd plowed my way through these
Suffered
two
to,
very recently,
yeah,
and so it was starting to feel like all a bit samey, and
sure.
I felt like I needed just a bit of a break in between
I think
before.
that's totally fair. I must admit, I do think I am going to say The Mirror and the Light is my least favorite of the trilogy, but that is considering that Wolf Hall is one of my all-time favorite books ever.
Yeah, it's a bar.
I would say I enjoyed them in the order of the trilogy. Wolf Hall is still my favorite, then Bring Up the Bodies, and then The Mirror and the Light. I think that The Mirror and the Light, I do think it could have been a little bit shorter, but and it did take me a little bit. I also, it's weird because you can kind of, in the first two, you can kind of forget that he has to die at the end. Whereas I just felt like the crushing knowledge of his death, and I almost found it like upsetting to read at times. But the ending was staggeringly good. Like I was weeping for the last 100 pages probably. So I would give it like a solid like 9 out of 10. Like I loved it more than like most books I've read this year. But Wolf Hall is still sort
If you
of,
had to rank them, yeah.
if I had to, then I would say I would go 1, 2, 3. So we have, and Weather, I would not be mad at all. Like I really liked Weather a lot. Like I'm not sure, it didn't like soar for me, but I did really like it and thought it was really interesting, and would not be mad at all if it was there.
I wonder if it's one of those books that maybe like a rereading will bring out a lot more, or make it more impactful in some ways. Because I just feel like with short books like that, sometimes you can just sort of like breeze through it and then be like, oh, that was really good. But then it just doesn't completely sink in. So yeah, maybe.
Yeah, absolutely agree. And because it's so short, it's easy to reread, obviously. So if it's shortlisted, I will reread it. The only one that I don't really want to read of the long list, which I hope isn't there, is Girl.
Oh. Have you read Edna O'Brien before?
Nope.
Okay.
That is going off the fact that like a few things of, it's like listening to what other people have said about it, and I think it's definitely in now is not the time. I am keeping an eye incidentally on the Women's Prize Twitter feed because it's 7:15 now, so we'll cut out as soon as that
Yeah.
Oh, okay, here we go. Okay, it's happening. Okay. Okay, right, I'm gonna make this full screen. I'm gonna share my screen. Okay, share screen. It's stressful. Women's Prize for Fiction. Okay, share. Okay, can you see can you see my screen? Oh, my email.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna make this full screen. Can you see just the Women's Prize thing now?
Yep.
Okay, great.
Well, you can see us in the corner, yeah.
Yes, but you can't see my emails, for example.
No, cannot.
Okay, right. Are you ready to go? Let's go.
Yes. Woo.
Hi, I'm Kate Moss, founder of Women's Prize for Fiction, and it's my great pleasure to welcome you to the reveal of our 2020 shortlist.
Well, I should have got a cocktail.
Yes, I've got some Prosecco.
Our goal was the same as it is now.
Just have water.
Celebrate and honour exceptional, fantastic, brilliant, beautiful, original books written by women in English from all over the world. Go through them very quickly. To support and amplify a diverse range of women's voices, and to put the classics of tomorrow in the hands of readers today. Between now and the 9th of September, when we'll announce the 25th winner of the Women's Prize for Fiction, we have a couple of things going on that you can join in with. The first is our campaign Reading Women, just follow the hashtag Reading Women, where we're shining a spotlight on the previous 24 winners of the Women's Prize for Fiction, hoping to bring these amazing books to the attention of a new generation of readers. And we've also got our podcast. If you like, it's a one-stop shop of books about women, written by women, women as readers. There's a kind of desert island discs, and even more fun, you can do a lot of snooping on other people's bookshelves. So
I mean, right now
there's
3
we can't be in
well-stocked bookcases on screen.
But if we on virtual hand by virtual hand, we can all still enjoy the incredible books that are on the long list and the short list of the Women's Prize for Fiction. So it's now my very great pleasure to hand over to our Chair of Judges for 2020, Martha Lane Fox.
Just so you know, this is a 6-minute
I'm
video.
Martha Lane Fox.
Okay.
I'm the Chair of Judges for the Women's Prize for Fiction in this, its 25th year. And what a year. It did not disappoint. As I hope you can tell from our long list, there's an enormous spectrum of women's writing, covering every single type of genre, every single type of story. And we really hope you enjoyed some of the selection that we made. But if you read any of them, you'll know it was going to be a tough time to get them down to just six books for your shortlist. Especially because of these crazy times, we weren't able to be in the same room. So we were on Zoom, we were all in different offices, in different places, and that did make it a bit tough at times to understand the mood in the room, to understand people's passions, a bit of tension, but we got there. We're all still great friends, and I think we're all very proud of this list. So I'd love to talk you through it and tell you a bit about each of the books that we've chosen.
Oh.
Dominicana by Angie Cruz. Now this is a debut novel, a story of a young girl sold basically into a marriage that's abusive and difficult, but that she moves from her native home, Dominican Republic, to New York. It's a story for now. It's an important story. It's told with vim, energy. It's told with incredible freshness, and we think you'll love the way that she brings this incredibly important story to life.
Yay.
Girl, Woman, Other by Bernardine Evaristo is a fantastically original novel that redefines the British experience. It's told across 100 years of history through the voices of 12 women, all unforgettable. We loved it.
1,000 Ships. Natalie Haynes. We absolutely love this book. It has all of the plot twists, all of the drama. Even though we know ending, it's still fresh because it's from the lens of the women in the story. If you're looking for a summer read, if you're looking for a story to get lost in, then this is the book for you. I loved it.
Good way of describing it, yeah.
The Moon and the Light by Hilary Mantel is a very big book. It's about 900 pages long, but the reader is gripped from the very first page, and the tension and the pace of the book do not let up. And I think one of the many extraordinary things Mantel does is to maintain suspense through the story, even though most readers do actually know how it's going to end.
Are they doing it alphabetical? Oh.
So far,
one of the things I loved most about The Mirror and the Light is Hilary Mantel's use of language, the way she reveals character through dialogue. There are all these wonderful witty one-liners and muttered threats and throwaway lines, which later we discover are not throwaway at all. But this use of dialogue, which is neither archaic nor anachronistic, really tells us who these people were and how they lived.
Hamlet by
I'm very happy.
is a novel we all absolutely love. It's fantastically original. It's the story of Shakespeare's personal life that really explores what it's like to endure the grief of a lost child. It tells the inside story of his marriage, of his relationship with his children, and it really shows you what it was like to live through the difficult personal trials that he had to endure. We all thought it was fantastic.
I already have some thoughts about this, I have to say.
Did you see?
By Jenny Offord.
Yes, were they? Yay.
Such a brilliant, hilarious, and incredible book. It's not like anything I've ever read before. I think the best way to describe it is it's about our fears about the environment and the world and the kind of constant information we're getting from this 24-hour news cycle and social media, and how that information intersects with our everyday fears and our everyday worries and the banality of our lives and the way we interact with our family and our friends and the people around us. It is truly unlike anything else, and it's truly amazing.
Ooh.
So there you have it.
There's 30 seconds
blue
left.
and red spines.
Them up, enjoy them, relish them. We hope you give some respite from these books at this difficult time. If, like me, you're at home a lot, you're working at home a lot, you're wrestling children, I guarantee that picking up one of these books will give you some sense of the wider world. We wish you love and luck reading.
Yay.
Ooh, okay.
Wow, good list.
Can I just make sure you can't see my screen anymore?
I cannot.
Great, okay. Fab, okay, amazing. Okay, great list. I mean, I'm pretty happy considering I have hardly read any of them. It has three and a half that I have read and 4 that I guessed. So I feel like that's pretty average considering I haven't read many of them.
So you can read some even more of the long list before the winner is announced. September 9th?
September, yes.
September. Yeah, so we have a long time.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Okay, I'm just
I'm not that surprised to see Dominicana on the list, because so a lot of the people I follow that have been reading the entire long list, quite a few of them, this has been one of their top books of all of them. So yeah.
But okay, so on the contrary though, I have seen a few people online who've been reading the long list who detested it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Ooh.
Which is why, because I also, it's funny because remember when we were doing our long list prediction and I was like, I included this on my long list prediction because
I have to give you kudos for that.
And I know, well, I mean, I kind of feel like I totally lucked into kind of predicting, I suppose, that the judges would, I don't know if it's a direct reaction to well, I can't even remember what it's called, the other one. What's it called?
American Dirt.
Yeah. But it's funny as well because there was someone in the comments who was like, you can't just pick a random other book and I was like, well,
vindicated.
I mean, either that's just what the judges have done, or anyway, we shouldn't do these lives because I'm insufferable when I'm right.
It's okay, gloat. Go ahead. I think you have the right to.
So I'm really interested to read because I feel like I've heard it feels like a Marmite book.
Yeah.
I feel like I've only seen people who really loved it or really hated it. So I'm interested, that for sure.
We'll be able to have a really good discussion about it too. Yeah,
have you read, you haven't read it yet?
I have not, no.
Yeah, okay. So interesting.
So yeah, that means I have 2.5 to read still, because I've read Girl, Woman, Other, 1,000 Ships, Weather, and I'm partway through Hamnet, so.
This is when I am so glad I've already read The Mirror and the Light.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to know.
I mean, you were going to read it anyway, so yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean, I didn't read it because it was on the long list. I read it because it's.
You're a mega fan.
I haven't read any of the other books on the long list. Like, it's still the ones I'd read before the long list was announced. It'd be interesting to know whether people who haven't read the first 2 books, I'll be interested to know if there's quite a lot of people watching this actually. I'd love to know if you're watching and commenting, if you haven't read Wolf Hall or Bring Up the Bodies, if you're going to try and read the whole trilogy, or if you're going to skip to The Mirror and the Light. I think you'd lose a lot of what she's doing in terms of building up themes and characters, but I do think it would, because it's history, I do think it would make sense. Like, you could go in because it's just like entering at a different point. I don't think it would be as satisfying a reading experience, but I don't think it's like
that's true.
Couldn't understand what was happening. So I mean, it'd be interesting. It's interesting, isn't it? Because there's very few books that are the 3rd book in a trilogy that would ever make it onto the shortlist of a prestigious prize. It's a very kind of anomalous situation.
Yeah, really unprecedented. Yeah.
So it'd be interesting to see reactions. It's the 3rd book on a trilogy and it's 850 pages long. Like, only Hilary Mantel could pull that off, I think.
Yeah, and I would say, having read the first 2 books very recently and then started this one, that it is much more in tone with Wolf Hall than Bring Up the Bodies, I think, because yeah, like just in terms of I mean, obviously like it's a longer book like the first one is, but also yeah, just sort of the tone of the narration, it seemed already that it was like it's sort of it's going between lots of different characters, whereas the second book seemed a lot more concentrated because it was just sort of all about Anne Boleyn,
Yeah,
pretty much.
interesting.
So whereas I feel like yeah, this is already going in yeah, a few different directions just because of that point in history. I guess a
Yeah.
lot of
There's
different
a lot
stuff
of
was happening.
people, you know, like it's sort of three wives that he, Jane, Anne, and then sort of a bit of the kind of Anne is very much present, and Catherine Howard is in, like, you know, it's there's a lot of history to get through, because a lot of stuff happened.
Yeah.
Although my like overwhelming feeling at the end of it was just like so sad that I just wanted to read the rest of the Tudor period through Hilary Mantel's words. Like, I'm gutted that I don't get to read like Catherine Howard and Catherine Parr through. I want to read it in her voice, and then I want to read about Mary and Jane Grey, and like I just like, I'm gutted that this is it. So
like, come on, Hilary, just dedicate the rest of your life to writing
all of English history. So someone said, I'm very afraid of this trilogy as I have a very little background historical knowledge, but I'd like to go through it 1 to 3. Someone else said, I haven't read it, but I would start with Wolf Hall for sure. I'm planning to read the first 2, then tackle The Mirror and the Light. It seems like people are aiming to read the whole trilogy. I must admit, I would recommend it. Like, I think that also we do have much more time. If the winner was being announced in 6 weeks, it just wouldn't be realistic, I don't think. But I think considering we have till September, it's such a iconic book series, and I do think you'll get much more out of them if you read all 3. So I would say that if they appeal to you, I mean, I love them. Like, I just love them.
And
so.
yeah, and that does give you enough time to sort of pace them out a bit. Like, I was trying to read them in a marathon up into the publication of this, thinking I would dive straight in, which I did, but then found myself overdosed a bit, and so I feel like it is healthy to read maybe a few other books between the other ones, just to,
I mean, if you add them all together, it's what, like about 2,000 pages probably. Like, that's it's like reading a 2,000 page novel, because it does really feel, I think, like a novel broken up into 3 parts.
Yeah, they're very connected. Yeah.
Okay, we've skipped down. So going back into alphabetical order, we've got Girl, Woman, Other, which I think is probably the least surprise. I think this one and Hamnet were the ones I feel like everybody loves them. Although, well, we need to come to, do we need to turn down? Okay, let's Girl, Woman, Other. I feel like everybody loves it. It's already won the Booker. I am partway through it and just love it.
Are you finding already, because I found partly one of my issues was it was just that, you know, with a novel with so many characters, like inevitably there's some characters I'm more drawn to than others, and that I sort of wish that the narrative would linger more on them, but then it already moves on to somebody else.
I'm only on the second person, so like I think that I probably I'm not far enough in to kind of feel that loss yet. So I shall report back when we discuss the shortlist, which I do feel like, considering both of us have read 3.5 books, and considering we have to September, pandemic or no pandemic, I don't think either of us have an excuse not to read the other.
We really don't.
So Girl, Woman, Other feels very like non-controversial and great that it's there. Yeah,
absolutely. I'm very happy.
Next was 1,000 Ships, which obviously I'm delighted by.
And as we just discussed, have these sort of issues with that, and I'm sure a lot of, you know, especially people reading the Women's Prize will have the same thing of having read Circe, of having read Pat Barker, that you will inevitably feel a slight overdose with retells of Greek mythology. But at the same time, you know, I'm so glad that I read it. Like, I found it a really enjoyable reading experience, having read all those other ones, and that it still gave a new slant on different events, as well as many other events that weren't covered in those books, since those books were much more concentrated on just particular characters and particular events in that.
I would say, I think it's probably a hard one to take against, isn't it? I don't feel like it's one that, I don't feel like I've seen people hating it in the way that I feel like I've seen people hating other ones. Like I think that I can see that it's, you know, different tastes, and but I think it would be a hard one to just like really take against. I think the quality of her writing is uncontroversially good, whether it's to your taste or not, or your, I don't know. I think that it's the thing with it, all these myth books, isn't it? I think that it depends on the order you read them in, and it depends on your personal kind of personal niche things of things that you particularly like or particularly don't like in how stories are told.
Yeah.
But I would say if you read Circe Silence of the Girls, then absolutely read this, as in, like, I think if you like Greek myth retellings, then you'll get a lot out of this. Please don't be put off it because you feel like you've read all of them already. Like, I think if you like Circe and the Silence of the Girls, you probably have a similar experience to you. Maybe that it doesn't feel as fresh and exciting as it did to me, but that you'll enjoy reading it.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, and I think probably my main criticism with it, other than just like my personal thing of like ODing on Greek mythology, is that there are so many characters. It got slightly confusing at some points because it's you know, with any book with a lot of characters, every once in a while you'll be like, wait, who is that again? And like, but very handily at the beginning of the book, there's a list of characters that you can keep flipping back to and referring to, which I did have to do a few times because I was like, wait, which one is that? Oh yeah. You know, and
talking about this and the Mantel, maybe my niche is like historical fiction with lots of characters with a slightly meta edge. I feel like maybe that, and actually like saying that, I'm like, that very much is my niche. That's what, that's what I love that. I feel like historical fiction with a like knowing nod or a meta edge is like my absolute favorite genre. You know, things like Margaret the First, and you know, I actually do think that is my favorite thing to read.
Getting that new view on history,
Okay, great. We already talked about The Mirror and the Light. Hamnet, you have feelings about. I've already said sort of, I haven't read this, but I'm a big fan of Maggie O'Farrell, and I feel like a lot of people like it a lot. So that's all. And I also have it's just so beautiful, and I have a signed like they did a special like independent bookshop.
Oh yeah, I saw you got that. Yeah, that's lovely.
Which I just got from Mr. B's, which is a beautiful bookshop, which is still taking orders online if you are in the UK and ordering books. So this is my treat for, I'm editing my book at the moment. This is my treat for when I've handed in my edit. So, but anyway, I'm intrigued as to what you think.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm only maybe about 150 pages in, so you know, it's still slightly early days because it's like 300 something pages, and I think maybe like my expectations are like way too high or something, but like I'm finding it good. I'm really enjoying it, but it's not totally gripped me that way, you know, in some books do that you're just like, oh my god, this book's amazing. Yeah, I haven't had that sensation yet in it. And also maybe like slight trigger warning, it's just for like now, it's there's a sort of plague happening in England when this is taking place, and it actually talks about how like the theaters need to be closed, and there's his sister is very ill with the plague and suffering from symptoms of it, and so yeah, it's feeling slightly.
Also, that happens in The Mirror and the Light. That happens just so everyone knows as well. There's a lot of plague in.
Yeah, oh yeah, and 1,000 ships too. Yeah,
and in the Mantel trilogy, in The Mirror and the Light, it's not so present, but like there's some really sad bits in Wolf Hall with the plague. So, wow.
And who would have thought that would be the thing?
Right, because wow, it's funny, isn't it, how it's come around. I also think, I don't know this, but I've seen from other people, just in terms of trigger warnings, it's about the death of his son, isn't it? So I think that it's worth just saying that I know that that can be a sensitive subject, so just to be aware if anyone's watching that that's a trigger for you.
Yeah, but again, like, I'm really enjoying it, and yeah, and so I like don't at all dislike it. It's just, yeah, that I felt like it just hasn't like totally
Okay.
gripped me in the way that I was maybe hoping it would, because yeah, I just, my expectations for it have just been so high. So
have you read her anything else by her?
just one other novel, This Must Be the Place. Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah, okay. And it's also just says, of course, that there's 3 historical novels. 50% of them are historical novels. No wonder I'm so happy. And like Girl, Woman, Other has, like, it's not, I mean, well, it is technically historical, like big chunks of it take place in the recent past. Like
yeah, but then parts of it go like almost 100 years ago or so, or
yeah, so lots of historical fiction, which is my fave. Okay, and the last book is Weather, which we kind of talked about briefly, which I really liked. And as we said, now it's on the shortlist. I promised before it was announced that I would reread it if it was shortlisted. Actually, I think I'm going to reread. I'm not going to reread The Mirror and the Light because I just read it and it's really long. But the other 2 books that I've read, A Thousand Ships. A Thousand Ships I read nearly 2 years ago. I read because I read it as a manuscript. So I'm definitely going to reread it because I feel like if I'm like going for it so hard in terms of how much I love it, I do feel like I'm like, it should be a bit fresher in my head before I really like nail my colours to the, nail my colours to the mast for it.
I don't know what
yeah.
is.
So I'm definitely going to reread that, and I'm going to reread Weather because it's so short, even though I read it more recently. I read it over Christmas.
You know what I'd like to do with Weather is read it aloud to my partner, just because I feel like it's because it's those like short snippets, and like and as I said, I think before when you were saying how distressing you found it, I found a lot of parts of it like very funny, and so I think reading it aloud would like really bring out that humor even more.
I think that's maybe the reason that I like felt a bit like unsettled with it, because I found bits of it very funny as well, but then I sort of was kind of felt a bit ricocheted between the bits that were funny and like feeling this like deep existential dread about climate change. And I think that I actually maybe found that sensation a bit unsettling, because I absolutely agree with you that it was funny, but it's so short that you do kind of ping between these emotions quite quickly, which I guess is what the book is doing. It's reflecting of the way that we feel like that, you know, as people. You go through life and you do, you know, I mean, at the moment as well, that feels very apt, you know, from one kind of hour to the next, you're sort of like having a lovely Zoom chat with Prosecco, and then you read the news and you're just like, oh dear God.
You're brought down again, yeah.
So maybe, I don't know, it'd be interesting, even though I only read it like 4 months ago, it will be interesting rereading it with everything that's going on, because I do think that it's impossible to do anything without thinking of that context at the moment, even if the book, well, none of these books are written with that in mind. So
yeah, absolutely. And how lovely that it's about a librarian in a time when we can't go to the library. So like,
although, you know, as a former librarian, I did really enjoy that. I'm always here for a librarian. Overall, I think a really interesting, strong shortlist. I think.
Yeah, but I mean, how crazy to try to compare, like, a novel of this size with Mirror and the Light, which I think probably it's the shortest and the longest novel on the long list, isn't it? So.
Yeah. So they kind of even out. If people are feeling intimidated about reading The Mirror and the Light, at least you've got Weather to read as well. Interesting. I feel. Yeah, I feel like also it feels like those are the books that people are more unified on. I feel like
we're more
books like
for.
Girl, books like, I don't know, is it Fleischman is in trouble? Fleischman is in trouble? I feel like a very kind of polarizing. I feel I've heard very mixed things about Gin Patrol on the Purple Line as well. So
although that is one that I'm still really keen to read. I think there's some from the long list that I still really want to read, like the Jacqueline Woodson and Queenie.
Me too.
I'm very sad that.
Oh yeah, I'm definitely still gonna read The Dutch House.
And also I have to say, I'm not surprised Anne Enright isn't on the list, because I don't think this is probably her strongest novel, and just the subject matter doesn't feel as like substantial as some of the other books. But personally, I just loved reading this so much. It just totally connected. I mean, you're talking about like the things you connect with personally as a reader. Like for some reason, novels about actors is something that I really respond to. And I just think it's so fascinating to see how you can, I don't know, it's like a look at like kind of personality in the way, you know, we all sort of like perform aspects of our lives in different situations, and you're able to look at that in a really interesting way in a novel when sort of looking at somebody when their profession is being a performer. And yeah, so I just absolutely, so in terms of books from the long list that I would still really recommend, these two.
No, that's great. I'm definitely going to read the Dutch House. I must admit, Anne Enright, I've only read the Green Road? And I didn't like love it. I thought her writing was beautiful, but the story didn't really connect with me. But my partner, as you know, my partner is an actor, so maybe I should and I did actually enjoy the opening character in Girl, Woman, Other, Amma, because she's obviously got her play on at the National. My partner has just finished in a play at the National at Christmas, so it was fun. Like a lot of the places I've like been to, and you know, I kept reading him bits out as well that were kind of skewering the kind of drama school acting industry, and I definitely enjoyed that bit. And I am going to read the Dutch House primarily on your recommendation. So although I've loved books of hers in the past. So right, I just want to give for people who are still watching, I would love to know what your favorite is. Some people are saying just the people are happy about Hamnet.
Yeah, and say what you're most eager to read first.
What are you going to read first? I'm in the middle of Girl, Woman, Other, so I'm going to finish that, and then I should read the ones. And I should read the ones. I'm going to obviously read the ones I haven't read at all before I reread. So I'm going to read Hamnet. I haven't got a copy of Dominicana yet, so I need to order that. And then I'm going to reread Thousand Ships and Weather, but we have got a lot of time. I'm just going to try and find what is the
I think it is September 9th.
It's September. I just wonder when is I was just going to try and find the exact date. Better not clash with my third book coming out. I'm going to actually genuinely email my publishers and be like, please, can we make sure that we don't organize anything for the same night as the Women's Prize? Because I genuinely like, sorry, I can't come to my book launch. I have to go to the Women's Prize party. Like, have a nice time.
Do Mrs. Doubtfire thing of trying to be in two places at once and go back and forth between them.
No, I'll find out where the Women's Prize party is, and I'll just be like, hey, Hop Collins, can we have my launch party? And just like pick a pub that's like
around the corner.
And I'll just keep swapping between them. No, I'm just I can't
Though of course, like obviously we're just gonna have to see, because we have no idea what the situation is going to be then. So like a lot of people that are rescheduling things for August and September and stuff, you know, it's, I mean, hopefully like by then things will settle down and most public events will be happening again, but then who knows, like
right, because they might have like, you can do events but there's a number limit. Eric and I might not make the cut if they already had 50 people there.
Well, then we would just have our own little party, like
well, we've all mastered all this technology now, so you know, we can be back on Zoom with a bottle of Prosecco celebrating in September. But regardless of whether there is a party or not, of course, there will be online shenanigans and such like, and great excitement. Yeah, great. Okay, fab. Well, I'm pleased. Well, I'm gonna
like this is a better shortlist than it was last year, I would probably say. Like you know, we were very surprised by last year's.
Yes, last year's shortlist was like eclectic, wasn't it?
that's a very diplomatic word to use. Eclectic.
I'm just reading people's comments. So Simon Savage, hello.
Hey, Simon.
How do you choose between Hamnet and Girl, Woman, Other? Head explodey emoji. I haven't read Hamnet yet, or finished Girl, Woman, Other, so I don't know if that's an easy decision for me yet.
I mean, imagine if you absolutely fall in love with Hamnet. I mean, how are you going to pick between them?
I know. Well, yeah. I mean, I must admit that I don't, much as I love The Mirror and the Light, like deeply, and I obviously am obsessed with the trilogy and Hilary Mantel. Like I haven't been so starstruck meeting an author since eons ago. And when I met her, I was just so starstruck, and she gave me a hug and she told me that she liked my hair, and I just was like I just couldn't speak, and I just didn't know what to say to her, and I was deeply awkward. And she was really nice. I've only read The Dutch House from the list and loved it. I have just ordered Hamnet. I'm going to read Dominicana next, as soon as I'm able to get one from my local bookstore. Would like to read Dominicana. Of the ones I've read, I would like Hamnet or Girl, Woman, Other to win. Hello everyone, I'd like to read Hamnet and Girl, Woman, Other, but there are so many chunky books on this list. Yeah. So it feels like people are saying Dominicana, Hamnet and Girl, Woman, Other seem to be the ones that are drawing people's attention. I obviously say read 1,000 Ships first, because it's not that long. It's even shorter than it looks, because it's quite short chapters.
Yeah.
You'll read through it.
Big. Yeah, I read it quite quickly, and and it's such an enjoyable experience. I think I probably, out of all the books, it's probably the most pleasurable to read, just as a sort of storytelling experience.
I don't think you can go too far wrong with it. I think it's one of those books that I would feel like I could recommend to a lot of people and feel confident that they would get something from it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Right, great. Okay, I think that's the 6 books. So thanks everyone who's watched and commented. I'm really happy this worked. I hope you all saw the video. Eric and I could see it, so shortlist as ever. I hope you didn't get too much of a look at my emails. Hopefully at some point in September, Eric and I will be able to hang out in real life and discuss. Surely they'll be letting 2 people hang out with each other in September. Anyway, that's a whole, I'm not going to spiral in that direction. But,
we'll get together and
hopefully we'll be able to fight it out.
That's all the shortlist.
I'm wrapping up, but this is an interesting question. Sean has just said, do you think winning the Booker makes Girl, Woman, Other less likely to win? I mean, it officially doesn't, as in they would never, it technically doesn't, but then normally I would say that maybe winning the Booker does have an impact on this. But I do think, because this year's Booker was so controversial, a lot of people wanted Girl, Woman, Other to win outright, and a lot of the press focus was on Testaments. I wonder if it will actually kind of negate it all evens out, the usual, it evens out, because people thought it should have won by itself and it didn't get as much press attention. So
or maybe they'll go crazy and give it to Bernardine Evaristo and Hilary Mantel.
Can you imagine? I don't. Well,
no, that would never happen. I was just joking.
Oh no, I. But when you think about the Booker, it's interesting as well, because the way the time frames overlap means books are often on the Booker shortlist before they're on the Women's Prize, whereas this is, I think, the case for Hamnet and The Mirror in the Light, because they're in March, they end up on the Women's Prize shortlist before the Booker shortlist. And that's particularly interesting, obviously, with The Mirror in the Light, which is, Wolf Hall and Bring Up the Bodies have both won the Booker. And so it would be interesting to know if, are the Women's Prize going to swoop in and steal their thunder and have Hilary Mantel win? If Hilary Mantel wins this, does it make it less likely to win the Booker? All those questions. Or you could say this might be finally in terms of this prize, vindication for Hilary Mantel, who's been shortlisted for both of those previous novels for the Women's Prize, but didn't win for either of them. But one, so. Yeah, who knows? I really hope there's a party this year, because I miss parties. Just stop. I especially miss getting inadvisedly tipsy at the Women's Prize party, which is one of my favorite activities of the year.
It's always very fun to see.
I just insist that I'm by no means the only person who does that. It's not like me staggering around disproportionately tipsy.
We're basically holding each other up by the end of it.
Also, I get so anxious. I'm just aware that the last like 10 videos I've done on my YouTube channel have been for children as a children's author. So if any of my younger readers have stumbled across this, I don't ever drink alcohol, obviously. She says,
make you so responsibly.
No. Yes. Anyway, I hope it happens because I like the party, but I also hope it happens because then I can hang out with Hilary Mantel. So, you know, I'm gonna befriend her at the Women's Prize party. This is my like life strategy. So yeah. So if everyone could just I know that, you know, if we could just all channel our energy into that happening, I would be appreciative of that. Right, that's enough of that. Thank you everyone for watching and commenting. I hope you're happy with the shortlist, whether it's in real life or digitally. Eric and I will be back for sure with thoughts about the shortlist. And yeah, make sure to subscribe to Eric's channel. He posts far more regularly than I do.
But you've been doing lots of great interviews recently, so yeah.
A lot of children's book focused stuff, which actually, please, I would love for people to watch those. I'm doing three interviews a week with children's authors. So if you have kids at home or you like reading children's books, then please do watch those as well. Right, everyone, stay safe. Don't go outside apart from for essentials. And
read.
Yeah, I'm gonna go and read a bit more. I'm gonna read more of Girl, Woman, Other.
I'm gonna get back to Hamnet.
Right. Okay, I am gonna take us off YouTube. Thanks everyone for